Hi guys, it's Ryan. This is my voice. What?
2 months.
2 months. Oh my god, yeah. So today is the 11th, February 11th, and on the 14th it'll be 2 months on T. So close enough. This is my best friend Micah.
Hey.
I'm visiting him in Boston right now, doing a belated birthday celebration, and thought it'd be a good idea to make a video together.
Uh, I'm Micah. Today is 8 months on T
Woo!
for me. Yes, that's very exciting. And this is my voice, 8 months on T, even though you don't know what my voice sounds like.
It's a
Not
huge
on
difference.
T.
It's a huge difference. So, couple things. So, I just want to talk about a couple of the differences or a couple of changes I've seen since I last posted a video. And then Mike and I are going to talk about the different ways that we take testosterone. And we're going to talk about the like trans healthcare and things that we've experienced and things that we hope for maybe in the future, I guess. So, a couple of changes. Obviously, my voice has gotten deeper. I can hear it. Facial hairs 1 through 12 have come in, and I'm keeping them as long as possible. We'll see how that works. And I've noticed my facial structure has changed and my body structure has changed. Like, not just my shoulders, but also I've noticed I've gotten less hippie, which is absolutely lovely. So, do you have what's your biggest like change that you've noticed since you started?
My voice, and I have all these little hairs.
It was way more than 12. He's got way more than
Yeah.
12.
All down here. Body hair. I have a lot of hair on my stomach now. Goes up to like there. That's it.
So one of the differences in the way that Mike and I take testosterone is I do injections on a weekly basis, and Micah uses androgel, which is a topical, which you do every day, right?
Every day, every morning, yeah.
You want to talk about that?
Sure. So I do use androgel. I use 3 pumps a day, which is 1.25 grams of testosterone in every pump. So that's 3.75 grams a day, which is more than 21 a week.
Whereas my like dose is I do 0.3 milliliters of testosterone on a weekly basis. So I actually don't know what the what the correlation is. Micah's probably on a higher dose because
I'm on a very high dose.
He's been on it for longer. The way my doctor and I had talked about things was that to start, I would start like a pretty low to medium size dose, just so that I wasn't like shocking my body and like I would lose all my hair instantly.
That's real.
It's a real thing. So I definitely didn't want that. And she said that on my 3 month checkup, which is coming up in March, that we would take my blood again, assess how my health was doing, and then they would bump me up to probably like 0.5 milliliters per week, which would be higher, and I'd be able to maybe see changes faster.
Yep.
Yeah. Has your dose changed, or did you just start high and stay
no.
high?
So I have a autoimmune disease that affects my thyroid, and so my testosterone was naturally pretty high. And since there's like little to no research on how using testosterone affects your body long term, plus like how using testosterone could affect the certain autoimmune disease I have, my doctor started me really low, and that's actually part of why I'm on the topical, because instead of shocking my system by putting a bunch in all at once and like having peaks and dips between injections, I'm at a pretty constant rate every day for the past 8 months. So I started at 1 pump a day, which is like nothing, and then 2 weeks after I called my doctor and I was like, I feel fine, let me do 2 pumps a day. And he was like, fine. And then 2 weeks later we did blood work, and my blood work was fine, and I was lower than like a normal male range. And so he's like, you can go up to 3 pumps a day. And since I've been doing 3 pumps a day, I've been at about like in the 1,000 range when they're doing my blood work. I don't know what those units are.
I don't know either. I just keep calling them units to anybody who asks. Like, every person has, or even biological females have testosterone in their system,
Mhm.
but the units are much less. Like, you're riding about like 20 to 50 or 30 to 60 is a pretty normal range. I was actually, I think, on like the middle to low end of that.
I was on the high end of that, so I was like 70 to 100 actually.
Yeah, I think I was riding in about like 26, 30, something like that. Again, don't know what the units are. So if any of my friends are in med school and know what those units mean, feel free to shoot me a text and let me know. Um, Now, like, I guess, so that kind of like segues into how our doctors are different. So as a trans person, there's a few different like channels that you can use to get your to get like, to start hormone therapy. So for me, I went to an informed consent clinic. Means that if I am over the 18? If I'm over 18 and I'm a consenting adult and I know what these things are going to do to my body, I can be prescribed testosterone and take it. My specific clinic that I go to wants there to be a simultaneous like physical aspect and a psychotherapy or mental aspect. So they request that you see like a gender therapist, which they have in house. So that like they go hand in hand. Other people or other channels require that you be seeing a gender therapist for a specific amount of time before doctors feel comfortable prescribing you any hormones. This also it also depends on your insurance too. My insurance is great. My insurance covers everything relating to my transition, which is not the case for a lot of guys. So that made my process really easy. They took my blood work, and then 2 weeks later, I had a follow-up appointment. I got the prescription that day. I started testosterone that day, and then that was how I started.
Cool. Yeah, so I live in Massachusetts, which is one of the only states that has laws requiring insurances to cover medical transition and like congruent surgeries and hormone therapies for trans people. So that makes life easier. That being said, I go to a doctor that I've been going to since I was born, so for the past 22 years of my life. And my entire family goes to it because he's a family physician. And so when I showed up for my physical one day, I had a note from my therapist who I had been seeing for about a year saying that Micah is trans, and I believe it would be beneficial to like his mental health and his life to start hormone therapy. And as I previously said, I have a autoimmune disorder, and so I get blood work done every like 3 months to check my natural testosterone levels because it affects that. And so they already had all my levels that they needed that Ryan had to get from like a week before because they just check it all the time for me. Anyways, and so he read the letter and he looked at me. He was like, "So you want to do this today?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so he basically just wrote me a script for the androgel, and he's like, "Do 1 pump a day, give me a call in a couple weeks, and if you're feeling okay, we can go up to 2, and then we'll do blood work in a month and go from there." And so that was super easy, and actually a lot easier than a lot of guys' experiences. I know often the letter from the therapist is needed through a lot of insurance. I think I just did it because it would make it easier in the long run, like a just in case thing. I was already seeing a therapist for about a year for like academic reasons and personal reasons and transition reasons, so I had it.
I just think it's also different. Your insurance has a huge it plays a huge part into like how you're like the process of getting top surgery too, or any type of surgical transition that you might want to undergo. So my insurance requires a letter and I think like 2 recommendations, which I had no idea about.
That's weird. Okay.
I don't know. But I know other people's insurance require you have to be on testosterone for a specific amount of time and a letter and something else. But those are things that can make it really like those channels make it really hard for like I think trans guys to like start their process and then feel comfortable about like gaining momentum on their process, and it always feels like an uphill battle fighting with insurance. So in that regard, very thankful that my insurance is what it is.
Yeah, like I said, being in Massachusetts, they have laws. So my insurance as a insurance company covers all transition surgeries. To get top surgery, it requires me to be out and presenting for a year.
Oh, really?
Like, unless there's like safety reasons. So unless I don't feel safe, like going to my work and school and family, being like use he, him, his pronouns and call me Micah. Um, and I need a letter from my doctor saying that they're treating me, and I have to be seeing that doctor for at least 3 years, which works because I've been seeing him for 22. And then I have to have a letter from a therapist. But that's it. You don't have to be on T for my insurance because there's a lot of medical reasons why some guys can't go on T.
Right.
And
how is your doctor with like your pronouns?
He's fine.
Because that was something that when I was looking into like clinics and stuff, I wanted something that was that they catered to the trans community a lot, so it wouldn't be like a hard thing for me to say, yes, my legal name is something different, but I go by Ryan, and these are the pronouns that I like. That was part of like the initial paperwork that I did. So as soon as I filled that out, they were perfectly, like, they were great. But I know that there are some doctors' offices that
aren't good,
that are not good, and even now, like my insurance company, not good. I like as far as like my insurance is great, but their use of my pronouns and like name, not so much. Same with like my bank and anything else that requires like my legal name.
Yeah,
I hate having those I hate having those phone calls. So in that regard, like I think my doctor, because they cater a lot to the trans community, they were really good about pronouns. But that's something that's really tough.
Yeah, I'm really lucky because I grew up in a very Italian Catholic community, like very white, very homogenous, and so I was lucky that the doctor in my community was so cool with it. And I'm pretty sure that a couple trans men in my like town see him as well. But I was also lucky because Boston has a LGBT community health center, which is massive, and like there's a bunch of locations in the Boston area, and so if I did have a problem with my doctor, I could have always transferred to a place that was more knowledgeable about what was going on and like more respectful of my pronouns and stuff. So Fenway Health is the like LGBT health center in Boston. And they have a thing called the Fenway Institute, which is a research organization within Fenway Health, and they are currently doing a study regarding vaginal health for trans men, and like best practice and how to be more respectful of trans men and their like bodies when having to do invasive procedures or like sexual health stuff. And so this one had to do with like sexual health and pap smears. And so they were doing research on a less invasive way for trans men to do or like people in general to do pap smears. So like it was like a self swab, and then they were also researching what practitioners should be doing to be more respectful of trans men and like their vocabulary for their bodies and stuff like that. And so I sat down with a practitioner, and she asked me like what my preferred words for my genitals were, and like when talking about sexual health, we were talking about like my partners and what their preferred pronouns are and like what their preferred gender identities are, and they were just using different vocabulary for like sexual acts and stuff when they were talking about sexual health. So like receiving and giving and like frontal sex and anal sex, and so just the words were more inclusive to trans people, which was cool. And then the pap smear thing, like they walked through it and they're like, what words do you want us to use? Do you want us to be like tell you what's going to go on? And so they were just very explicit in like letting us have a lot of control of the situation, which was great, and especially in a situation where a trans man might be really uncomfortable.
So when you start testosterone, there might be certain parts of your body that you feel dysphoria about, but certain parts that you might have been okay with before,
Mm-hmm.
you might feel dysphoric about
Mm-hmm.
after you start testosterone. So I think that's really important. Like as
Yeah.
far I don't have like any reference to this, like, or I haven't experienced anything like this, but I think my preference would be moving forward, I guess, like along those same lines, just using inclusive language and just like being aware that this is like a probably a very uncomfortable situation for a lot of guys, like especially that don't want, maybe they don't want the focus on certain body parts,
Yeah.
or but I think that I think to make healthcare just better for trans people altogether would just be to just have those like pronouns and have that language just be already in like the healthcare professionals' vocabulary. I think that's a huge issue.
And like just being like respectful that like everyone's different and everyone uses different words for like their body parts. And like I know my dad is a OR nurse and has been for like 30 years, and I was talking to him about this study that I partook in, and I called it vaginal health, and he's like, "You mean feminine health?" I was like, "No, because there are males with vaginas," and he was like, "Oh."
Like now that like I've had like started to have these conversations with people, how strong people's association is with like body parts and gender, which doesn't really make sense to me. But
like especially in the healthcare setting where your job is to help people, like you don't want to be a dick and make someone uncomfortable. Like
right, because I think that would like deter people from going.
Yeah, and like that's the problem is that like there's so little research on like on trans healthcare, and there's so little access often for trans people to get healthcare in general, let alone like trans knowledgeable healthcare, that like it's important that we're doing these things.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's like those are just our experiences. Again, I don't know everything. Micah doesn't know everything, but
Everyone's
together
different.
we know something. And every person's experience is different. So if you do have questions about my experience, or if you want to reach out to Mike, I'll put his maybe like Facebook name or like contact information down below if you want to talk to him about his experiences. But other than that, it's been a great 2 months so far. I'm sure Mike has had a great 8 months. And I'm excited to see where this goes. So thanks guys for watching. If you have any questions, you can hit me up. Have a good one, guys.
Bye.